stories of, I've always known deep inside that something is intrinsically wrong with the way things are. And like Jolly was saying on your recording you just posted, I've always had, from my earliest memories, a deep instilled kind of fear of authority. Kind of like I would bow. I wouldn't say boo to a goose. I would do everything I was told to do, but that can only endure so long before you start to react to it.
Right.
So what I'm faced with now is, obviously I had an experience in the last couple of days, which has strengthened my resolve, assisted me in further eradicating any fears, although it's displayed to me the danger of how much these perceived authorities abuse their position and do not understand law versus acts and statutes and all that jazz, and it is dangerous, and it's the kind of trying to anticipate what the hell are they likely to do next, in terms of their abuse.
Right.
And I've had the perception as well that, I thought, because in the last 4 weeks I've taken time, I've arranged my circumstances so that I could immerse myself even further into the legal name fraud area to, embolden myself, have a deeper understanding. And via all the Facebook stuff and everything else, I kind of took the impression that it was going to be a lot easier than it has turned out to be in the last couple of days. Mm-hmm. And I've been kind of shocked at compared to whatever you guys were. Because just out of interest, I'll phrase this correctly, where are you at on this in this world?
At Georgia, Southeast United States Corporation. Mm-hmm.
Right, and I'm at Swansea in South Wales of the UK Corporation, if you like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was kind of expecting. I don't expect you to to know currently that recently I changed the registration plates, as they call them over here, on my van to a personalised plate, which was the K-Row plate, which had been sat outside on what they deem and refer to as a public highway outside my house, which is one of a row of terraced houses, and I did that about 2-3 weeks ago, and no problems. I'd been driving it around. I'd passed police cars. Wasn't afraid, held no fear, and then lo and behold, day before yesterday, the corporate revenue enforcer turns up at my door, asking for the legal name. To which I gave him a slip, which I have in my wallet. I have a couple of them by the front door, which basically says it's illegal to use a legal name. Google legal name fraud. And they just wouldn't have any of it, which then drew me in. Mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, here's the deal. To overcome a lot of the emotional warfare that they are trained to inflict upon their victims, it's best to keep front and foremost in your mind that they're offering you. They're offering you services at all times. This is a corporate entity's actor, these police and whatnot. They're there to offer you their services, and you are there to, when you're standing in the truth, insofar as the legal name fraud goes, you are there to decline all legal offers into the system so they can tap that birth bond and get and make money off of it. This is all about revenue generation, as you know. So. You have to take that away from them, and that's what this is about. They're there to get you to join, and you're there to stop from joining.
Yeah.
And again, guys with guns and with a thief mentality, which they have. They physically over you, they have the upper hand, but you have total control at all times of the decision to be obedient or to not be obedient to their demands or commands or offers. Yeah. So that's the way to look. Don't look. A lot of people say, "Well, they're demanding that." No, they're offering services to you. Just simply decline. So, tell me some more about on your plate. It just said what now? Just 3 letters.
Oh yeah. It was just K''RO.
And did you take the VINs off that van?
Yeah, I did. They would call it defacing the VINs. However, what they put 2 and 2 together and came up with whatever number they felt like, because prior to that, the car, it was a van, was on registered plates, and I had a series of parking tickets attributed to that registered plate, which I duly ignored, as is my right.
Right.
And I think somebody, unfortunately, there's a lot of irony and there's a lot of funny stuff in this as well when you reflect on it. 2 doors, 2 houses down from this house, there's a person who works for the DVLA. That is the driving license, driving and vehicle licensing agency, which governs or assumes to govern the rights to travel on the highways of this UK incorporation. I've got a feeling that they reported me, denounced me, whatever. Because all of a sudden there's this couple of cops coming to my door, asking me about the vehicle, and I got drawn into it, which with hindsight maybe I shouldn't have, because I had an exchange of text with Kate last night and this morning kind of thing, and she's obviously got the far further viewpoint of it now, and that's a learning in itself. But she was saying that you should just say it's illegal to use a legal name and say no more. At that point, I was drawn in. I said more than perhaps I should have done and allowed myself to get drawn in.
Okay.
So after a discussion back and forth for an hour or so, and they were still having none of what I was saying, they were... It was unbelievable. It's kind of like it challenges your certainty of your own state of mind, because they're just so brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, that part of the story shortened, they arrested me for obstructing police in carrying out their duties under the suspicion of theft. Now, what they'd done was, they connected the certain dots between the vehicle as it was when it was on registered plates, having these parking notices attributed to it, being the same vehicle that is on the public highway outside of this address.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, it's assumption and presumption.
Yes.
And they have assumed, although I never consented or I never gave any consent to anything or acknowledged my being anything involved with the legal name that they were trying to attribute me to, they arrested me on this suspicion of theft, which is ironic because having thought about it, and as I was thinking about it, although I didn't say it, they know that it's, if you like, my property, because they've connected those dots, and they're trying to accuse me of stealing my property.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
And despite any logical and calm discussion or offering of the truth to them, they would not accept it. And I understand, because they cannot accept it because by accepting it, they are undoing themselves.
Yes.
And that is the catch-22. It was a huge and fascinating learning curve in and of itself in its entirety. So what then happened? They forcefully, and I use the word to them, abducted me, took me to the Swansea Central Police Station, where they have cells. They're like isolated cells.
Were they armed?
No, the UK officers aren't armed. They may have had tasers and a baton or whatever. They didn't have the need to use that.
Well, those are armed, but those are arms. Those are weapons of intimidation, and they could actually be used as lethal weapons. So they were armed. So that's armed intimidation. That is straight up terrorism using their own definition.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. They manipulate it as to their want, don't they?
Yeah. That's terrorism against you, by the way. These are acts of terrorism against you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So what I was going to say is, you can possibly imagine how keen I was to discuss this with you and share the story with you, if you like, to hopefully glean a clarified understanding from your viewpoint, because I've gleaned that you are further along this path than I am. Fair enough, in a different area of the world, but I'm just looking for a bit more kind of knowledge, clarity, and so on.
Oh, you're pretty far along here, because I haven't gotten a feather brush. You're all in it. You're having a bunch of fun. With these guys, first-hand experience. So I'd say you're pretty far along. This is very good for you, by the way, and for them, because the whole time you are informing them about their crimes and about what they're doing wrong. So I mean, you're just what you're doing is you're injecting this truth into into the matrix, and you're poisoning it for them.
Yeah, exactly. And there were. Along the way, there were a lot of these people acting their role as, within this system of perceived authority that were, you can tell they were genuinely interested in what I was saying, but they were not allowing themselves to accept it because they can't.
Were you looking at them in the eyes?
Oh, yeah.
Were they looking at you in the eyes, or were they looking away? Did they seem uncomfortable?
Oh, they were uncomfortable. There was the main one who was the first one who came to my door, and he was shall we say, a short fellow, tubby, as in chubby, fat, whatever you want to say, that has serious control and power issues.
Yeah, they like to hire those guys.
Oh yeah, and without being too unkind, I would use the word retarded.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was the one who was totally unnecessarily aggressive, in total denial of anything I said. And the different people terrorists that I was encountering had different levels of I could perceive they had different levels of acceptance of what I was saying, but could not acknowledge that by reading their faces, their body language, and all that. There was a lot of looking away because they couldn't stare truth in the face. On a psychological standpoint, it was fascinating.
It is. And let me make a note on this. This may have been the first time they have heard of this, of the legal name fraud.
I got the impression it was.
And
I asked a few of them, I said, have you not come across this before? And they went, well, we've come across something similar, but not to the point that you're telling us about it.
But and now they have this in their consciousness. When you look a man, when a man or a woman looks a man or a woman in the eyes, there's a connection of consciousness.
Okay. Yeah.
And what you did is you were sharing this with them. That goes into their mind, into their consciousness, and it's going to reside there. And they're going to mull this over. They're going to have a good sleep on it. Right, and there's something that is now there that cannot be resolved, because if they are a conscious human, a conscious living being, they are they're going to come to the idea that there's a conflict in what they're involved in, and that's what we're looking for. And there should be a conflict between their fraud and your truth.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the battle they're in.
Right.
And it's like sowing or should we say, injecting a positive virus.
Yes.
And looking forward to it spreading.
Yes, it's a worm that's turning throughout the matrix, and it's absolutely just tearing it apart. Absolutely, that's what's happening. Yeah.
And this was the other thing was, as I mentioned before, I was expecting, inside as I was, I didn't expect this to occur when it occurred. Although there's a couple of ways I perceived it as it's fascinating how it has occurred when it did occur, but I was expecting it to be easier because I'd immersed myself via the internet into a group of beings who are sharing all this information, thus giving me the perception that it was going to be a lot easier than it turned out to be. And the fact that the perception I was given, or that I took, was that they really hadn't come across this yet. And that was my kind of, oh my God, seriously. But that's the kind of the shock of the reality of the situation.
Let's talk. You're talking about the difficulty here. Let's go back to the point at which you were arrested. How did you have a door between you and them, or?
No, I got it. This is another important aspect of this, which is, if you like, beyond my own concern for myself. I've got my dog here, which is my, excuse me. She's like my child.
Right.
She's, if you like, more important than my own safety and whatever.
She's family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And she was in the house. So when I went out to, shall we say, interact with these people, and shut the door behind me, and again, kind of long story short, at one point I opened my van to get some paperwork out of the van, which I kept in the van, which were the I can never bloody pronounce it, the ribulous paperwork,
right?
By Kate, and the I who shall not be named paperwork. I tried to hand these documents to the first two officers, or first two, should we say, people,
actors,
yeah. Yep. And they wouldn't go near it. They wouldn't accept it. They didn't want it. I couldn't give it to them.
Well, of course not. They completely get acceptance. Because when they touch it, there's an acceptance of that document. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. There was a third actor who came along who, thankfully, took these documents, which later on ended up in the file that they created for me. Mm-hmm. So they've got them. They're on file, whatever. So to go back to your question, I'd been back and forward, and that was when I was messaging you to say any advice and so on.
Uh-huh.
And in the meantime as well, with it being such a kind of whirlwind and a surprise, I totally forgot from the outset to start videoing them with my smartphone. So after a few minutes, I thought, oh fuck, why am I not videoing them? So I started to video them, and the main retarded actor who started this all off was extremely reluctant for me videoing him.
Right.
Although I have got one video that I didn't realise was actually videoing when it was actually in my pocket. So I've got a very rough kind of audio of a conversation.
Uh-huh.
And then I got a couple of other kind of sketchy videos that weren't the best parts, unfortunately. But so I was back and forth from the house, each time blocking my house door for the security of my belongings in the house and of my dog. And eventually was out there with just my house key. I'd managed to secure the van with the remote key fob. And left this actually is amazing. I actually managed to do this totally unconsciously. I didn't realise what I'd managed to do, but I'd managed to get myself in a position where I was out there discussing with them, trying to rationalise the situation like, grown adults. And I had my phone in my pocket, which I actually didn't realise I had at that point, and also the single house, the door key for my house. When this retarded actor came down after asking something of my next door neighbours, came down and unexpectedly said, "Right, I'm arresting you for whatever it was," and thrust the handcuffs on. A mild resistance from me, resulting in however they're supposed to put these handcuffs on. I've never been arrested before in my life, so it was a new experience in that sense. Mm-hmm. But the handcuffs were extremely uncomfortable, caused some abrasion and bruising on my wrists, and then I was put into the back of their car. I managed to. They tried to get the key from me. And I said, "No, you're not having a key." Meantime, I was wearing Wellington boots. You know what they are, yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I managed to, but when they dropped me off in the, offloaded me into the police station and a initial small holding cubicle, at which point I managed to get the key, whilst I had handcuffs on, from my back pocket into my sock, in my Wellington boot.
Okay.
So, and their inadequate searching of me. Fortunately, they didn't violate my physical body in an internal sense.
Right.
But they didn't uncover this key, which I didn't want them to, because I didn't want them coming into my house without somebody else present.
Right.
So I gave them. For the security of my property and the safety of my dog. I say my dog, although I'm using that just as a common reference. She's not mine, as I understand. She's my friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the security of those things, I gave them the number of my friend, who is my ex-partner, but we're still friends, because she loves my dog. Almost equally as I do. Mm-hmm. And I asked them to contact her so that she could let them in to my property, so that she could supervise and take care of my dog, so that the dog was okay. Now, this is another field within the abuse of rights and what they perceive as laws or statutes or whatever. I don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. That they, through deception and manipulation, they gained access to this dwelling and searched around and found, whilst my friend Maria was here, uncovered a driving license with the legal name on. Mm-hmm. My passport, which they didn't take, but also my national insurance card, which has your national insurance identity on there,
right?
Without any warrant. Yeah, they did, obviously in legal terms, they wouldn't need a warrant because they were granted access through their manipulation.
Yes.
Of my friend. So yeah, however you want to hang that out and describe that, that's what occurred whilst I was unlawfully held in their establishment.
Well, they're also the legal actors. The rules that the legal actors create and enforce do not apply to them. No. That's part of the game.
Yeah.
That just applies to anyone who makes the mistake of violating the corporate policy without a bar card. If you don't have that bar card, or you're not one of the armed employees of the bar carder, then the rules definitely apply to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't apply to the bar attorneys or the cops, not at all. No. Right.
At one point, I even had there was a couple of cops later on in this event who were interviewing me recorded interview for their official purposes, and I was doing my best to explain to them, the legal situation, which they do not comprehend or refuse to comprehend. And they were saying, oh, well, because this guy was saying, this actor was saying, because I've sworn an oath to the crown, I have the right to use this legal title. And I'm like, no, you don't. And he was swearing blind that he did. And he's like, I said, have you passed the bar? Are you a barrister? No, but I've got the legal right. And it's like, God, it's like talking to retards.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know what they say, I have the legal right. No, I don't have the bar card, but I have the legal right. You have to, again, do you have that in writing?
Yeah.
Or did they just tell you that?
As well, and they say, I don't need it in writing.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
you just cannot win with these guys.
Right. Well, exactly. Again, it comes down to it is illegal to use the legal name, and the reason why this is a very correct way to proceed with these people and not to get into too much verbosity with them about it is because when you say it's illegal to use a legal name, they have been noticed that you're not a lawbreaker and that you're not going to do an illegal act which involves using legal names or following legal orders. Because you're not a lawbreaker, that's where you stand. And if whatever they do from that point forward is their intent to be a criminal towards you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
With hindsight as well, and following what Kate said and put it in its most simplistic terms as possible, I now realise that I did enter into too much, as you put it, verbosity.
Yeah.
Trying to substantiate and trying to educate these people, which very quickly proved to be a pointless exercise. With hindsight now, if any situation like this occurs again, which there's a likelihood it may, I will just stand my ground and just say it's illegal to use a legal name, period. Trying to reach out to their humanity,
yes,
with rational explanation, which duly fell on deaf ears.
Let me tell you about that right quick. Why that is? It's because there's no rapport established. This is an immediate. This is like there's no foreplay.
No.
So the coupling is going to be bad. It's going to be under negative pretenses.
Yeah.
No smoothing out before getting into the meat of the matter, so to speak. It's the lack of rapport during these engagements that these people are closed to what the truth of the matter is, and that's why I've been extremely I've engaged a lot of these cops and whatnot around here.
Yeah.
Chief of police and whatnot, with a lot of emails and some phone calls and whatnot. So, and personal meeting. To try and get this rapport established, so this is not such a shock if they see me traveling about, as I oftentimes do through their so-called jurisdictions. But so again, there's no rapport, so the only thing you can do is just, like Kate would say, it's illegal to use the legal name, and if they deny this legal fact, then simply say, well, guess what? Never have gotten a written permit to use their legal stuff. So that's a fact. There's no argument here. It's just not legal.
No. And also, in and of itself, in that point you've made, is I wouldn't want authority to use that, knowing what we know now.
Right. Oh, well, you can't get it anyways. It's illegal to even get that authority.
Even if you could, that would be subject to their permission.
Well,
I don't need their permission.
But that's correct. Well,
if you did want to use that name, which I don't want to use, if you had permission, and that is acquiescing to an authority. So it's a self-defeating, perception, isn't it? So. Yeah.
Well, actually, here's what would happen if they were to say, "Yes, I will grant you authority to use the legal name." The next question will be, what is your name?
Yeah.
And as soon as you give them that name, that will be incorporated. That will be assumed and presumed to be a legal creation. What you're doing is you're in effect registering that moniker that you just gave them. When they put that to paper, if a bar attorney puts that to paper, that becomes a legal work.
Yeah.
And they're now giving that paper to you. So you just self-registered. At least that would be the presumption. Yeah. And again, this is the dead legal world interfacing with a living being. The legal construct cannot deal, because it is a two-dimensional thing, it cannot see or interface with a living three-dimensional thing.
No.
Unless, of course, you consented to being labeled as a two-dimensional entity, which is any name you provide them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So So, you see.
Yeah. Because also at various points, a couple of these actors said to me, or asked me, just so that we're not rude and all this stuff, what can we call you? And at one point I said, well, you call me friend, you call me mate, call me sir. At one point I just said, call me K, letter K. That is, there's no, in the sense of it, that's no, they can't do anything with that, can they?
Well, yeah, and you could also say, well, you can call me a terrorist victim because that's what I am right now.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
And just to put the mirror right in front of them. How do you like what you see? Kind of thing. Yeah. So, it's both silly and tragic.
Yeah, simultaneously. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The other thing that, obviously, during this of removing one's dignity, sleep deprivation, total mental and psychological intimidation, food deprivation, and it is, whether they realize it or not, they are deep up to their nuts in mind games. But to them, it's their normality. Yeah. Yeah. They threatened me with, they tried to threaten and menace me with being what you guys would call a psych eval. I was encouraged, shall I say, to have a discussion with a mental health nurse.
Yes.
Who I kind of revisiting now, talking to you about it. It just reaffirms the total absurdity of it all.
How did you deal with that? Did you ever come face to face with this mental evaluator?
I did. I obliged them on that one. With hindsight, I possibly shouldn't have, but I was obviously feeling the, should we say, subtle effects of their intimidation. So at every point I could, I was also saying, wherever I kind of obliged them in their, I hate to say, because it sounds like they kind of like they got me. Wherever I acquiesced, shall we say? Let
me stop you right there just temporarily. Oblige and acquiesce. Let's go back to offer, acceptance, or decline. So what you're saying is you accepted an offer.
Unfortunately, that's why it cuts me up to realize that that's what I've done in hindsight.
Okay, yeah. So just and that's the thing to keep in mind going forward, and in the now here is, do not, when you accept an offer, and even the little offers, would you like a drink of water?
Yeah.
I would go so far as to say no, I don't accept that. Anything from you.
That was the thing that was spinning around in my head at the time was, if I without going into the details of the shit food that they provide. Plus, I'm vegan. They had a big challenge with that. But because physically I became hungry, I resisted as long as I could. But it gets to the point where it's like, well, the situation they put you in, it's an enormous challenge.
Yes.
But in hindsight, I wish I had just resisted all their offers of food or beverages.
Well, that's the point. That's the point of a feather brush. It's so that you can perfect your intent.
A huge learning opportunity.
Yes.
So yes, I did engage in a a conversation with this mental health nurse.
Uh-huh.
During which I explained to her as clearly and concisely as I could the facts pertaining to the laws and legal actions that they were misinterpreting, abusing, whatever. And I guess she heard what I was saying as well as she could.
Uh-huh.
I left her with the thing of Google legal name fraud, so I planted another big seed there.
Big victory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether she has any or whether she had any perception prior to encountering me, I don't know, but I'm hoping that she will do now. Even just out of natural human curiosity, I imagine she's looked into this.
Well, now that when everything that you said is she is required to write down, and so now it's a part of the legal record.
Yeah.
So that's extremely important. It's entered into the two-dimensional legal realm now. So again, you have a truth virus that's working its way through.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I like that. It's the truth virus indeed.
Mm-hmm. And so tell me, did she say after she was done interviewing you, did she have anything to say, or just, hey, interview's over?
I asked of her. I said, so do you think I'm mad? She said, no, I think you're a very sound mind. Mm-hmm. I had throughout, because they said, we don't get many people like you in here, because the feedback that I got directly from these actors and via the communication to and with my friend, who is drawn into this inadvertently as well, was that their opinion of me was that I was how do they say, intelligent and articulate, and kind of like that kind of thing, which
right.
Yeah, compared to a lot of people, I guess I am. And they were most surprised at the fact that they don't get many people in their establishment like me, because all the others were, if you like, raving druggies or alco bloody maniacs in the other cells, screaming, shouting and banging all effing night long. Mm-hmm. Thus attributing to the sleep deprivation and the kind of challenge to your mental faculties. Fortunately, I have the ability to recognise that and switch off from it more than most people can. And I was basically meditating and stuff when I was isolated. Mm-hmm. And managed to with one of their should we say or less than dangerous food implements they provided. I managed to write on the floor of this cell, it's illegal to use a legal name, Google legal name fraud as well. But
that is beautiful.
The kind of guys that will be in there, I would seriously question whether they'd be able to bloody read anyway. So that it may have an effect.
Right, right. That's fantastic. I like that idea. Never thought of that one.
Whatever you can do, isn't it?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So,
now, how long were you in a cage?
On and off, with short intervals where they took me out for these interviews and stuff like that. Uh-huh. Just about 23 and a half hours. They also, because I asked them at some point, I said, how long are you through your however I phrase it, how long are you intending to keep me here? And they were saying, well, we can keep you here up to 24 hours, but we may, subject to this, that and other bullshit, we may be able to keep you here for up to 96 hours and all this. Obviously, I see now was scare tactics. Yep. Threats and menaces, because they ultimately released me approximately 23 and a half hours into my stay, because I had not given them joinder in any shape or form. Mm-hmm. Didn't sign for anything, because fortunately, the discussion, the audio that you put up with what's his name now? The guy who, right at the end, had signed for his bail.
Yes, that would be maybe Shammy.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm friends with Shami now on Facebook.
Good.
As a result of that. But because I'd heard that educated me and reinforced my resilience to not sign anything.
That's what I'm talking about. That's good stuff.
Yeah, well, that's thanks to you, mate. So yeah, and that's obviously the objective with all this sharing of information.
Thanks to Shammy too, because a lot of times people go through this like Shammy and they are shamed.
Yeah.
But this Shammy's such a strong living being.
Yeah.
That he saw fit to share this with us, so all of us could learn. And there you are. What, a week later?
Exactly.
Putting it to use.
Funny how it works out, isn't it?
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Just awesome.
So yeah, it was total, thanks and gratitude to having heard that. That I built my resistance up to, not sign for anything. And lo and behold, they still had to let me go.
Aha. Now tell me, let's talk about this. So toward the end of this duration, this time period that you're in the cage, are they stepping up their efforts to get you to invoke a legal entity or sign a legal entity?
Continuous, yeah. Obviously there is periods of time, like literally like a couple of hours at a time or longer. It was, obviously, I had no way of knowing what time had passed and so on. It was just kind of a vague kind of estimate. So there's long periods of time of being left on your own with intermittent, or shall we say, how would you say, I can't think of the word, but they'd come by now and again, open the box in the door to obviously make sure you're not falling asleep for too long, and just under the proviso of you're all right, make sure you're awake and you haven't died in your sleep or something.
Right.
As they would probably have you believe they're doing it for. They also have the little. There was 2 little spy holes which occasionally they pop by, and I kept my eye on when they were doing that. And then every occasion, there was a physical doctor who came by on a couple of occasions to try and preempt acknowledgement of being the legal fiction, with the temptation of we can progress this and we'll let you go as soon as you can agree or let us know who you are and all this. They already had the details of this legal fiction from the get-go, so I knew that.
So what were they looking for? They were looking for your consent so that it could grab the birth bond credits right there.
Yes, exactly.
And pay for your arrest. They wanted to pay for your arrest, your incarceration, and your mental eval.
Yeah.
And they can only do that with your consent to be a dead legal creation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. There was continuous attempts at that. Because there was at one point, after a fair duration, I heard one of the actors walking down the hallway outside to one of the less stable members of our world, who was in one of the cages down from me. And on his coming past, I hear in his footsteps, I just tapped on this thing and said, any idea, how long I'm going to be in here? And he said, well, again, another offer came forward. As soon as you can let us know who you are and give us a name, you'll be out of here. I'm like, all right. And I just left it at that. So it was a continued intermittent offering of acceptance to being that legal fiction, which I resisted all the time.
Fantastic. And so how did this come to a head to the point where you're released?
Well, basically, I did actually manage to seemingly get a little bit of broken sleep, shall we say, maybe an hour or so. It was yesterday. I was released at about 2 p.m. our time, and they just came out of the blue, He said, come on. I said, what? He said, well, just come on. I didn't even know at that point they were releasing me. Took me to their checkout desk, returned the items they had stolen from me, from my physical person, offered me to sign this bail form, unconditional bail, which, again, said, no, I'm not able to sign. And they went, oh, okay. Oh, this is an interesting thing as well. I didn't see this, but when the actor who led me, and it was always a different guy every time as well. And always an offer of, as you put it earlier, an offer of rapport.
Yeah.
False rapport, which was I was going to say bien évident, very apparent to me. Which this guy, finally the guy said, "Come on," and I went, right, okay. So I, without saying anything verbally, I went along with him, and he took me to the desk, and I was given this other offer of, the guy was kind of just almost like expecting me to sign, kind of like, oh, you just need to sign this for you to, your bail form, and then you can go. I said, no, I can't sign. So they still proceeded and printed out this bail form or whatever. It's called a pre-unconditional bail, under the name of this legal fiction, so I didn't sign for it, but they gave me my belongings back, escorted me through the building to the front of the premises, where I said, I realised where I was then, because I was obviously still a little bit, sleep-deprived, shell-shocked, and everything else. So I was trying to gather my wits about me, and they let me outside into the street, and I kind of said, oh, not getting a lift home then, am I? Because I kind of, just out of, I'm a polite guy, I believe in courtesy and manners at all times, and I kind of, without thinking about it, thought, oh, I'm going to give me a lift home. How stupid I was. And I kind of, this guy who was kind of attempting to extend this warm and gentle rapport, saying, I'm sure I know you from somewhere, and all this jazz, which with hindsight obviously was a ruse to try and, soften me up and whatever.
Right.
As he opened the final door and said, oh, I'm not getting a lift home then. And he laughed and said, no. And I'm like, right. And I, went out, gave my friend a call, who fortunately, the way the timing of this release, which I find fascinating in terms of when you think about the phonics, re-release.
It's a commercial term.
Yeah, exactly. My friend Maria was able to pick me up within a couple of minutes and drove me home. And it's just like, open the door and, oh, fuck off.
Yep.
Scum, whatever. And it's like, wow, what a learning curve. Then, obviously, it doesn't end there, because then you come back and you're trying to re-establish your sense of life after this event. And you have this flood and waves of various emotions that are coming through your system. And it's kind of just like, as I said in my message to you, just trying to regather myself and re-establish a sense of the reality that I want, So yeah, and they've given me, this is the other ongoing part of the potential saga, is they have, although I didn't sign for it, and cautiously I took the paperwork without signing anything. I have this pre-charge unconditional bail, which says it's to enable the Crown Prosecution Service to make a charging decision, which is basically an offer, as you quite succinctly put it, to appear. There's something like, I've got to. The legal fiction has been granted unconditional bail, must surrender to the police station specified below. And it's all written in, I am granted I have been informed, all this stuff, obviously, which I haven't signed,
Right.
and fail to surrender to custody, I may commit an offence and be fined, imprisoned, or both.
Yep.
And they set a date for this thing for the 20th of January at 10:30 Greenwich Mean Time. So the thing that obviously I would appreciate any guidance on is, like, from your viewpoint, what would be your view of action or non-action to be taken with regard to that?
Well, it's pretty straight up. The way you've been dealing with it, the way you dealt with it the whole time that you were in the box, the cage, you simply did not cooperate with armed terrorists.
Yeah.
Meaning to do you harm, with intent to do you harm, because you told them right up front that it's illegal to be involved with them and to be aiding and abetting them in copyright infringement. And you are in the England.
Wales.
You in Wales, so you are actually right there within very overt Crown corporation property. So again, there's no better way to have proceeded other than the way you have done. You have maintained that you are not going to infringe on Crown copyright intellectual properties, and you never did, from what I'm hearing. And going forward, as long as you continue on that path of not infringing upon Crown copyright property, that's the way to go. And again, you do not have any consent evidenced by means of the papers that you have. You didn't sign that at all. You didn't even make a mark. Is that correct?
No, that's true. The one thing I was going to share with you is that they did, through the implied threat of even implied threat of violence or other potentially harmful occurrences, they against my will took my hand and fingerprints.
Yes.
They threatened, or they as you would put it, and I shall continue to put it now, as I am learning. They gave me an offer to provide them with a DNA sample, which I outright refused and said I do not consent to that.
You declined that offer.
Yeah, I declined that offer.
Yeah, let's not use refuse. Decline is much more succinct. Yeah. Yes.
Cool. I mean, again, we're speaking to you, and it's a learning process. So I'm fine tuning my verbiage. Mm-hmm. So, whilst they have the imprints of my hands and fingers, they have nothing else. They have no signature or anything like that. So
they forced your hand upon a piece of paper?
It's actually this digital scanner thing now that they've got.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's like an infrared scanner, which in technology sense or terms, it was quite impressive. But it was a forced taking of my imprints. Yeah.
Did they ask you to sign anything immediately after that handprint?
Yes, and I declined their offer.
Okay, let me just point this out. Your handprint it means nothing in the legal world without that signature.
That's what I kind of rationalized.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they were trying, again, they're trying to take the living being, or rather, your handprint is actually an effect of the vessel.
Yeah.
They're trying to get that. Of course, they coerced you to provide that against your will.
Yeah.
In a setting, you were actually physically located in a place that you were brought to against your will.
Yeah.
And then after that print was stolen by them from you, they're then asking you to provide or to invoke that legal name, so as to tie you, the living, to that print. That's all that's about. And you obviously passed this test with flying colors. Fantastic.
I have to say, not for ego terms, but from reassurance terms, I am greatly reassured to hear you telling me this, because it's just a kind of, it helps one to reground oneself.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is really a super awesome story.
Yeah.
Incredible. Incredible experience. This, and by the way,
Yeah.
I am recording this, but I'm not going to publish it unless I get your consent to do so.
Fine. I'm glad, and I'm glad you're recording it, because it's easier than writing all this
Right.
amazing shit down.
Right.
But ironically, I am so reluctant to giving consent to anything. I don't know what to say to that.
Oh, that's fine. It's I've recorded it. If you let's just put it this way: if you have any, if you don't want me to publish this, then you can just say I'd rather not have that happen.
In the beautiful abundance of love sense of sharing whatever we can all share, I would encourage you to broadcast this from the rooftops.
Okay, I'll do so.
Because especially as I have discovered through this experience, nobody knows about this near where I am. There are anything that can be done to bring awareness and understanding education to this, we've got to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's so. What you've done is you have taken this legal fact, and it's just so simple, and it's so demonstrably true that it's illegal to use a legal name, and you have just simply stood by that, and you were released. The truth of this matter set you free.
Yeah.
And I might add that you delivered the truth very confidently and very articulately, and also very calmly. And for those that are listening to this, extremely important. When you endeavor upon this area, you must remain calm, you must remain articulate, you must remain confident, and you must look these people in the eyes, and you must connect with them when you're speaking to them.
Be polite, passive, non-aggressive.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's just inviting them to bring out other weapons that they may choose to use against you.
Right, and you don't want to give them any excuse to elevate the conversation to a level that is unproductive for everyone involved.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, because these people are not our enemies. The police are not our enemies. The people that are brainwashed are not our enemies. It's simply their false, the belief in the falsity of this matrix, this legal system, that needs to be changed. This requires no violence whatsoever. It simply takes a patient, living being to convey this and to stand in the truth on this.
Yeah.
When interacting with these people that are legally brainwashed. Yes.
Yeah. And to have an understanding, however challenging it may be, to hold an understanding that deep down in those meat sticks of actors, there is a human in there somewhere.
Yes. Oh yes. There's a living being that's been buried by indoctrination. And they can. I have met people that were once indoctrinated, and they are fully de-indoctrinated at this point. They're completely in the truth. Yeah. I've met these people. It can happen, but it does take patience and calmness, and a very firm standing in the truth of this matter, and the ability to articulate it well. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's quite possible they're never going to mess with you again at this point. And in fact, I'd say that's probable.
Situation, yeah.
Well, here's the thing, because this is literally, you have declined the offer of bail and of any agreements thereon or thereof.
Yeah.
So you're already there. Gut right now is telling me, if I were in your situation, to not deal with them in any way going forward. You have established. You have well established at this point that you are not willing to accept their legal offers. Yeah. That's not going to. So this is going to get back to the barrister, and it's going to get back to the Crown employees, and they're going to have to talk about what to do about this.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to be like, well, are we going to test this guy again and try and bring him in under commercial contract, or are we going to what? I mean, do we really want to waste time with this? Because the more we dig on this guy, the deeper in the crap we're getting ourselves into. Because really, you if they mess with you any more going forward, especially with this recording that's going to go live at some point, this is just going to be they're going to bring down the entire Crown system, the corporate system.
Well,
they just need.
That's what we want, isn't it? So.
Right. So, as long as you, and it sounds like you're very confident in your situation here in proceeding in the direction in the way that you're proceeding. So these, and again, we're talking about barristers. You're obviously very intelligent individuals, and these barristers are also very intelligent. So I think that cooler heads are going to prevail on this from the barrister side, and you're going to be left alone.
Yeah. Well,
if this is not the case, then it's another opportunity to do for the Crown employees to do major damage to the Crown Corporation. So you're going to win either way here. Yeah. We're going to win either way.
Exactly.
Yes.
The only question one might have, shall we say, is to what depths might they descend to? As in, I mean, I through this process, I can't remember if I've said this to you, Ciro, but what they have done to the positive for me is they have reassured me that I am right. They have assisted me to remove fear to such a great extent, and embolden me to stand in my truth even more. So if they were to make the error of abducting me, whatever you want to call it, taking their chance with me again, I will stand in my truth with greater resolve. What they might choose to do in response to that is the big question for me.
Okay, well, here, let's zoom out.
Yeah.
You have not contracted with them. They cannot access the credit associated with the legal name birth bond. They can't. And from what I'm hearing, you've been let go because they can't finance their kidnapping / armed abduction operation insofar as you're concerned.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to do. They don't want to proceed. The corporate employees, the corporation itself, the actors thereof, they don't want to proceed in a money-losing capacity. They are there. Everything they do is designed to bring in revenue to the corporation. You are obviously of no harm. You don't harm people. You are offering no interest of harming other people. You are declining all offers to contract. You are. You, not only will you not bring revenue into the corporation, but if they continue to mess with you, their actions against you offer the very real possibility of doing major damage to the Crown Corporation.
Yeah,
that's what we're seeing here. What you see what is going on, and you have a profound comprehension that the commercial system is based on consent, and when you're not willing to consent to be one of their legal creations, there can be no monetary gain for that corporation. No. They don't want this to get that it is too much for them.
Yeah.
That this is now going to be broadcast is really going to suck for them. But if they continue to bother you, it's not going to do them any good either.
No, exactly. The more they bother
right.
me or anybody else who's in this position,
right.
the more it fuels our reason to spread the message even quicker.
Right. Yeah. Because this is really, in America, this idea of by the consent of the governed.
Yeah.
That's where these so-called authorities have this idea that they can do what they do to people over here, and that's completely dead on correct.
Yeah.
Because you are the author. As a living being, you're the author of your life.
Yeah.
And the only way another living being can have any authority over you, because they weren't born to have authority over you, because everyone is their own authority in their individual capacities, is for you to consent to allow for that authority over you. And it extends to everything on the planet.
Yeah.
So even, and especially with a corporation, for example, that presumes to have authority over you. Well, that's just crazy because that's not even a living being.
No.
So that's for absolutely all living beings need consent to enable it. If someone presumes to have authority over you, the consent must be granted to them by another living being.
Yeah, to give them that authority, yeah.
So that's just the starting point. Now, when a corporation, someone's legal creation presumes to have authority over you, well, you certainly have to provide consent to that. I mean, Walmart does not have any authority over me. There's no evidence to suggest any such thing. No. But now if I was a Walmart employee, there might be some evidence that the Walmart corporate policy applies to me. Same thing with the government or the corporation, the UK corporation, America Inc., US Inc., Canada Inc. Unless you are an employee, there is no corporate policy in effect against you or involving you at all. And you have demonstrated you are not an employee.
Yeah.
So you're in a good place. You're in a good place.
Yeah. Well,
as long as you keep on doing what you're doing during any future engagements, and keep your intent benevolent and pure. Yeah. Just you're golden. Golden.
Well, as this has been a beyond description, huge learning experience. I now know with hindsight, from what you've said and reassured me of, and from what Kate has said in our messages, next time I will minimize what I say and reduce any physical interaction or anything to the point of reiterating that it's illegal to use a legal name, Google legal name fraud, and I decline your offer, basically.
There you go.
Yeah.
And anything coming from the legal purview, anyone presuming to be from the legal purview, anything they do or say towards you is of a legal nature, and you're just not authorized to comply with any of that.
No. Another interesting aspect of this as well, which is it's frustrating yet very, very interesting and funny, is they stole my van, right? Which I made clear to them that if they, in their words, had it towed, recovered, whatever they want to call it, I said if they take it, it's stealing, because on the windscreen of the van, I'd put on my homemade badge saying, "This is not property of the Crown Corporation." Having replaced the plates to private plates to deregister it, I didn't notify anybody, because by the act of notifying people, that could be assumed or presumed to be an understanding that they are an authority, which I reject. So nonetheless, they've stolen my property, which I would love to get back, because through their stealing of my property, they have infringed on my freedoms. But what they've said via my friend, who they communicated with and so on, they let them know to let me know that I could go to this impound, this yard where the company that recovered or stole the vehicle is keeping it, and I can have my vehicle back if I go to the police station and pick up my license, go along to get my vehicle with the logbook of registered keeper, and put the old plates back on. And obviously, it's just trying to ensnare me to go and do that and consent to all their offers.
That's right. If you were to do any of those things, that would create joinder, and that would pay for everything from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly.
Ab initio.
However, I would love to have that van back because of what I've just said. Do you reckon there's any way, once they have kind of like left me alone, that they would bring it back, or should I just consider that lost?
I would deal with your attachment to it. So
yeah, the only attachment is that it's a practical piece of kit that helps me exist more comfortably. That's all it is.
Right. However, I would say too to consider that if there's any possibility of joinder, to this
Yeah,
to the construct in your attempts to get this machine back, you need to not go there.
Yeah,
You need to simply look at other
yeah.
options. Other options would include acquiring another vehicle,
Yeah,
and ripping the VINs out and doing everything as you've done before.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
having considered that, though, obviously considered the risk of them turning up, whether they would or not, given what's recently occurred. But the possibility of them turning up and stealing that article as well.
I would say that's going to be a lower risk probability at this time.
Right. They're actually, when you analyse it and think about it, they're more afraid. They are more afraid of us, the ones who have this knowledge,
Right.
than we are of them now.
Absolutely. It's the main concern that the barristers, the bar attorneys have at this point is a significantly expanded number of living beings with this knowledge of the legal name fraud.
Yeah.
And if they sense that their actions will increase or expand the consciousness regarding the legal name fraud, I do not think that they're going to go with that action. They're going to do whatever it takes to decrease the consciousness of the legal name fraud. So I think, again, just my gut tells me you're going to get left alone at this point.
Yeah. That's good.
But you may be tested, but you're going to pass that test.
Yeah.
And it's, you may be tested again. You're going to pass that test. At some point, you will be totally invisible and off limits to these people. You will have a DNA that do not engage this individual at all.
I would like to thank you purely for helping me to see that from that perspective. That's the place I want to be looking at it from.
Mm-hmm. Well, look at it. The way we arrive at this is we just look at the architects of the construct, which are the attorneys. How would you behave if you have created this fraud and you want to maintain it for as long as possible? How would you behave?
Yeah.
You don't want to do anything that's going to mess with the fraud itself.
No.
And dealing with people like you, like me, like Kate, like Jolly, is very counterproductive to that
kicking
objective.
The hornet's nest.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the whole idea.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's good. I'm in a better place now. You've helped me clarify all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome what you've done, and I very much appreciate you standing so firmly.
Well, it was without a doubt it was enormously challenging, but it's been enormously worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.